Please, Mr. Williams. Come home now. She's going to destroy your twins. Rosa's voice trembled as she whispered into the phone, peeking through the crack of the children's bedroom door. Jessica was in the room again, and this time she had that cold, terrifying look Rosa had come to fear over the last 6 months. Her hands, calloused from 15 years of cleaning the Beverly Hills mansion, tightened around the phone. Rosa, I'm in an important meeting. David Williams sounded distracted and impatient. Jessica says the boys are fine. You're overreacting again? They're adjusting. In the background, she heard male laughter, clinking glasses, another whiskey-soaked business meeting. Meanwhile, Tommy and Jake, his 7-year-old twins, were paying the price at home. Sir, please, Rosa pleaded. Just this once, believe me. Jessica locked Tommy in the dark closet because he spilled juice. Jake's been crying for an hour, and she said if he doesn't stop, footsteps. Rosa froze. Jessica appeared in the kitchen doorway like an elegant shadow. Blonde hair perfectly styled, even at 3 p.m. her blue eyes cut into Rosa like ice. Rosa, dear? Who are you talking to? Sweet voice. Poison underneath. It was my daughter, Miss Jessica. Rosa hung up quickly. A family issue. Jessica smiled, but it never reached her eyes. Good. You know how irritated David gets when employees use their phone for personal matters during work. She stepped closer. I hope you didn't say anything inappropriate about our family. Rosa lowered her gaze. No, ma'am, never. Good. Now clean the office. David will be home in 2 hours. I want everything perfect. Jessica walked upstairs. Rosa didn't move. Her fists were shaking with anger, not fear. For months she had tried everything, showing David the bruises on the boys, explaining their strange silence, their changes at school. But Jessica always had an excuse. The boys are restless. They get hurt playing. They're adjusting. Rosa is overprotective, and David chose Jessica's charm over his son's cries. A muffled scream floated from upstairs. That was the moment Rosa decided. She would no longer be invisible. She had raised 4 children alone. She had survived racism, exploitation, humiliation. She had endured bosses who treated her like furniture. But she had also learned how people like Jessica operated and how to dismantle them. This time, she would not be silenced. 2 weeks later, David came home smiling, carrying a diamond necklace worth more than Rosa made in 2 years. Jessica performed her shocked face perfectly. But tomorrow is Friday, she said sweetly. I can't leave the boys alone. She looked at Rosa like she was a worn piece of furniture. With the help, Rosa continued folding the boys' clothes, the ones now hanging loose on their fragile bodies. David never noticed. Jessica smirked. Rosa can stay late. She understands how important intimate moments are for our marriage. Her eyes said the truth. You will stay. You will watch. And you will do nothing. But that night, after they left for dinner, Rosa found Tommy locked in the upstairs bathroom. Face red from crying, she said, if I tell Dad what she did to Jake. She locked me in the basement all night, he sobbed. Rosa, Jake is bleeding. Rosa ran to the twins' room. Jake lay face down, shirt lifted, red marks from a hairbrush burning across his back. She said, boys who wet the bed need to learn to be real men. Jake whispered. A fury Rosa hadn't felt in years rose through her, and that fury gave her clarity. The next morning, Rosa arrived wearing a small button pinned to her collar. It looked decorative. It was a micro-dash camera. Her son, Marcus now, a lawyer, had given it to her. Just in case. He had always known she would face someone like Jessica one day. Jessica continued her sick sweetness. Good morning, my little angels. Rosa prepared a full breakfast for the children. But the moment she stepped out of the kitchen, you know the rules, Jessica hissed. Boys who pee in bed don't deserve full breakfast. Tommy was allowed 1 pancake. Jake nothing. But I didn't pee, Jake whispered. Jessica ripped his plate away. Are you calling me a liar? Then you get nothing. Rosa returned just as Jessica stroked Tommy's hair, pretending to be a loving mother, and the camera caught every second over the next week. Rosa documented everything. Jessica forcing Jake to stand in a corner for 2 hours. Jessica telling Tommy his dead mother was disappointed in him. Jessica serving full dinners to David and scraps to the boys, broken toys. Destroyed on purpose, the twins' weight loss. Dark circles, hunched posture meanwhile, Rosa's children helped from the outside. Marcus, lawyer, building the legal case. Kesha, tech expert, creating secure cloud backups. James, LAPD officer, digging into Jessica's past. Denise, social worker, identifying clear patterns of abuse, and they found out the truth. Jessica had done this before 3 times in 3 different states. Predator hiding behind charm. When David left for a weekend golf trip, Jessica finally said, "Rosa, don't come tomorrow. I want special time with my boys." Rosa nodded. She had everything she needed. The next morning, Dr. Patricia Wells, pediatric trauma specialist, arrived secretly, but before they reached the boys' room, they heard screaming, "You're useless. 2 pests nobody wants." Dr. Wells flung open the door. Jessica was holding Jake by the hair, forcing him to stare at photos of his dead mother. "Look at her. She died because she was disgusted by you. Let that child go." Dr. Wells shouted. Jessica spun around, wild-eyed. "Who are you?" "A doctor." "And you, ma'am, are being filmed abusing minors." Jessica saw the red recording light. Then she saw the live stream counter, 847 viewers. 1022. 1247. Climbing fast. "You disgusting little maid!" she screamed, lunging at Rosa. "I'll destroy you." Rosa didn't flinch. "Keep talking, Jessica," she said calmly. "The whole world is watching." David called moments later, frantic. "Rosa, people are sending me videos of Jessica. What is happening?" "I suggest you come home immediately," Rosa replied. "Dr. Wells is examining your children. They're malnourished, traumatized, abused." Jessica shrieked, "David, don't believe them." But he had already hung up. 20 minutes later, he burst into the room only to see the truth. He had refused for months. His sons looked like survivors of a war. Jessica ran to him. "They're lying, David." "They manipulated the children." He stepped back from her. "I saw the video." Dr. Wells turned. "Mr. Williams, these children show signs of long-term abuse. Rosa has recorded 15 hours of evidence." Jessica's face drained of color. Police sirens echoed outside, led by James, Rosa's own son, Jessica Barnes. "You are under arrest for child abuse, neglect, and cruelty to minors." Handcuffs clicked. Jessica was dragged out past reporters, past cameras, past the life she had built through manipulation. Within hours, the video went viral. Her career gone. Her reputation destroyed. Her name synonymous with abuse, all because she underestimated the black woman she thought was invisible. 6 months later, Rosa sat in the living room of the mansion, not as the housekeeper, but as the house manager. With triple salary and full benefits, Tommy and Jake laughed in the garden, healthy, happy, whole again. Dr. Wells visited often, amazed by their healing. "Rosa, you saved them. You changed their entire destiny." David looked at her with remorse. "You were always family. I was blind. Thank you for protecting my children when I didn't." Marcus now worked with families in similar cases. Keisha handled digital security for future victims. James trained officers on recognizing abuse. Denise counseled traumatized children, and Rosa, once dismissed, ignored. Invisible became the quiet hero who proved something unforgettable. Real revenge is not destroying those who hurt you. Real revenge is saving those they tried to break and rising higher than they ever imagined. The house had fallen silent after the argument, but inside Marlene's chest her heart still thundered like a trapped drum. For 12 years she had worked in that mansion, cooking meals she never tasted, polishing floors she never walked freely on, raising children who barely remembered her birthday. She had swallowed her pride with every insult. Every order barked at her like she was invisible. But today was different. Today, something inside her had snapped. Mrs. Whitmore's harsh words still echoed in her skull. "People like you should be grateful for what you get. Grateful." As if she hadn't given this house more loyalty than the family ever gave each other. Marlene wiped her eyes, straightened her uniform, and looked at her reflection in the hallway mirror. For the first time in years, she didn't see a servant. She saw a woman who had survived storms far worse than a rich woman's tantrum. A woman who raised 3 kids alone? A woman who kept this entire mansion functioning while its owners pretended to be royalty. That was when the front door opened. A tall man stepped inside Mr. Whitmore's older brother, Anthony, the one the family rarely spoke of. His eyes immediately locked onto Marlene's swollen cheek, the way she clutched her side as if holding herself together. "What happened?" he asked quietly. Marlene hesitated. One word could ruin everything or save her. Before she could answer, Mrs. Whitmore stormed into the room. "Good, you're here." "Fire her. I'm done with this woman." Anthony didn't even look at his sister-in-law. His gaze stayed on Marlene, calm and steady. "You've been running this entire house," he said softly. "I've seen the accounts. I know who really keeps this place alive." Marlene froze. Then he said the words that would change her life forever. "Pack your things. You won't be working for this family anymore. You'll be working with me." The hallway felt colder after Anthony spoke, as if the entire mansion was holding its breath. Marlene didn't move. She wasn't sure she even could. For 12 years she had been talked over, talked down to, and treated like she didn't matter. But now a single sentence from a man she barely knew had cracked open something inside her. "Pack your things. You won't be working for this family anymore. You'll be working with me." Those words didn't feel real. Not in this house. Mrs. Whitmore's face twisted with disbelief. She had built her entire identity on control, on the idea that everyone in this house bowed to her voice. And now someone had dared to challenge her publicly. "What exactly are you implying, Anthony?" she hissed, though her voice trembled more than she wanted it to. Anthony didn't flinch. He spoke calmly, the way someone does when they've already made up their mind. "I'm not implying anything. I'm stating a fact. Marlene deserves better than the way she's been treated here." He looked at Marlene again, and something in his gaze made her look away. It wasn't pity. It was respect. Mrs. Whitmore scoffed loudly. "Respect? She broke things, she disobeyed orders, Marlene's voice came out small, but steady. "I didn't break anything, ma'am." Mrs. Whitmore turned on her like a storm. "Are you calling me a liar?" Anthony stepped between them, and for the first time in years, Marlene felt protected. "Enough," he said quietly. "I've seen the reports. The staff turnover. The complaints. And I know why everyone left. They weren't running from the job. They were running from you." The color drained from Mrs. Whitmore's face. Anthony opened a folder he'd been carrying. Papers, pay records, staffing schedules, expense logs, all things Marlene had managed quietly behind the scenes without a word of complaint. "She wasn't just cleaning," he said. "She was running this entire household. Ordering supplies, arranging maintenance, managing schedules, solving problems you didn't even know existed. That's not the work of a housekeeper. That's the work of a household director." Marlene's eyes widened. She had never even heard that term spoken to her before. Mrs. Whitmore sputtered. "She's just a maid." "No," Anthony said firmly. "She's the reason this place functions at all." Marlene felt her throat tighten. Nobody had ever acknowledged her work like that. Not once. She had spent years being invisible until this moment. Anthony turned toward her. "I'm offering you a new job at my home. Full pay, full respect. A place where you won't be shouted at or ordered around like an object." Marlene shook her head slightly, not in refusal but in disbelief. "Why would you give me that chance?" Anthony's voice softened. "Because I've watched you. Every holiday, every event, every emergency, everyone ran to you. You're the one who kept this family standing while they tore themselves apart. And they repaid you with insults." A single tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. "Say yes, Marlene," he said gently. "Walk away from this house and all the years it has taken from you?" She looked around the mansion at the floors she polished, the rooms she cleaned, the windows she washed every morning before the sun was even up. She remembered the nights she slept only 3 hours because Mrs. Whitmore wanted the silver polished again. She remembered the birthdays she missed with her own children, the holidays she spent here while her family celebrated without her. The pain, the exhaustion, the silence. She had given this house everything. It had given her nothing. She swallowed hard. I accept. For the first time she felt her own words echo. Strong, certain. Mrs. Whitmore exploded. This is outrageous. You can't just take my staff. She isn't yours, Anthony said sharply. She never was. Marlene lifted her chin, something she rarely dared to do in this mansion. Ma'am, thank you for the job, but I won't let anyone speak to me the way you have. Mrs. Whitmore stepped forward, furious, her voice cracking. If you walk out that door, don't you ever come back? Not even for a reference. Marlene looked her directly in the eyes. I don't need a reference from someone who never respected me. Mrs. Whitmore froze. It was the first time Marlene had ever talked back. And it was perfect. She turned, walked to the small room they allowed her to sleep in, and began packing. Her trembling hands smoothed over her few belongings. Old uniforms, a framed picture of her children, a pair of worn shoes. She placed each item in her bag slowly, breathing in the moment. Every second felt like shedding a chain she had carried for years. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Heavy, slow. She turned to see Anthony standing in the doorway. Take your time, he said quietly. There's no rush. You're not being thrown out. You're being set free. Marlene's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. For years she dreamed of someone saying that. She just never imagined it would come from the very family she served. She finished packing and walked out with her head high. The staff that remained peeked from corners and doorways, some smiling, some shocked, all whispering. No one had ever left this house with dignity. But Marlene was leaving with something far more powerful. She walked past Mrs. Whitmore, who stood stiff as stone, arms crossed tightly, eyes filled with a mixture of fury and fear. For the first time in her life, Mrs. Whitmore had lost control. Marlene didn't say a word. She didn't need to. She stepped outside into the cold air, feeling it wrap around her like a promise. A new beginning. A life that wasn't built on orders and insults. Anthony held the car door open for her. Not like a servant, like a colleague, like a human being. She sat down, hands shaking slightly. Then looked out the window at the mansion where she had spent 12 exhausting years. As the car pulled away, she felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Freedom. And she had no idea that this choice, this moment, was only the beginning of the story that would change her fate forever. Asterisk. As the car rolled down the long driveway, Marlene pressed her hands together to stop them from shaking. Freedom was overwhelming, almost frightening. After so many years of being told where to stand, when to speak, how to breathe, she didn't quite know what to do with silence. Anthony watched her carefully but respectfully. He didn't push her to talk. He simply drove, letting her have the moment she had earned. After a few minutes, he finally spoke, his voice calm. You don't have to be afraid. You made the right decision. I'm not afraid, Marlene whispered, though she wasn't sure if she believed herself. I just don't know what comes next. That's the beauty of it, Anthony said. You get to choose. The idea felt foreign. Choose? Her life had never belonged to her. From the moment she stepped into the Whitmore mansion, everything had been decided for her, ours, her duties, her worth. For 12 long years, her existence had revolved around a bell that rang whenever someone needed something. Now there was no bell, just the quiet hum of the car and the sound of her own heartbeat. They pulled up to a large gate, and it opened slowly. Marlene expected another mansion, another place where she'd be hidden behind the scenes, working in shadows. But Anthony's home was different. It was beautiful warm lights, wide windows, large porches, a garden full of flowers instead of stone walls. It didn't feel like a palace. It felt like a home. He parked and stepped out first, then opened the door for her again. She hesitated before stepping onto the driveway, her eyes scanning everything. This is where you want me to work? No, Anthony said firmly. This is where I want you to lead." She blinked. "Led what?" "The entire estate. I want you to run it. You have the experience, the discipline, the attention to detail. You've already been doing the work, just not with the respect you deserved." Her breath caught in her throat. "I don't know if I can." "You can," he said. "More than anyone I've ever met." She looked at the house again, a flicker of hope forming in her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. Maybe this wasn't just a new job. Maybe it was the beginning of a life she never thought she deserved. Marlene stepped forward slowly, feeling the soft gravel under her shoes, each step grounding her in a reality she was still learning to believe. Inside the house, warm yellow light spilled across polished wood floors and cozy furniture, nothing like the cold perfection of the Whitmore mansion. This place felt lived in, human. Anthony watched her with quiet patience, letting her take it all in. "From today," he said gently, "your life belongs to you again." Her chest tightened, not from fear this time, but from possibility. For the first time in a long time, Marlene let herself imagine a future that didn't hurt. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains of the guest room where Marlene had slept, really slept, for the first time in years. No alarms, no banging on her door. No list of chores shoved under the frame before sunrise. For a moment she just lay there, staring at the soft light on the walls, letting the warmth settle into her bones. It felt unfamiliar. It felt dangerous. It felt wonderful. When she stepped outside the room, Anthony was already waiting in the hallway with a cup of tea. He wasn't dressed like the intimidating business figure she remembered from the Whitmore gatherings. He looked relaxed, kind, almost relieved she was there. "I hope you slept well," he said. Marlene nodded. "Better than I have in a long time." He led her through the house, explaining the routines, introducing the small staff who looked at her with respect instead of suspicion. They had heard about her. Anthony had spoken highly of her even before she arrived. Every person greeted her warmly, like she was someone important, someone valued. In the kitchen, she found a stack of documents neatly arranged on the counter. A job offer. A salary that made her breath stop. Benefits she had never imagined. A private room in the estate. Days off, paid holidays. A promise of dignity. She traced the edge of the papers with trembling fingers. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered. Anthony nodded. "You deserve more than you've ever been given. But life has a way of testing resolve just when hope begins to bloom." That afternoon, the past came knocking. Mrs. Whitmore. Her car screeched into the driveway without warning. She stormed up the steps, eyes wild, mouth twisted in outrage. She didn't knock, she barged inside, calling Marlene's name like she owned every building on the planet. "There you are," she snapped when she found her. "Pack your things. You're coming back with me." "I will not tolerate betrayal." Anthony stepped between them instantly. "You have no right to be here. Leave." Mrs. Whitmore jabbed a finger at Marlene. "You think you can walk away from me? After everything I did for you? You belong in my house?" Marlene felt something shift inside her. For 12 years, she had lowered her head every time this woman shouted. She had swallowed every insult, every accusation, every degrading word. Not today. She stepped forward, gently pressing her hand to Anthony's arm to move him aside. Her voice was calm but solid as stone. "I don't belong to you, ma'am. Not anymore. Not ever." Mrs. Whitmore's expression cracked. She had expected fear, apology, not strength. "You can't survive without me," she hissed. Marlene shook her head slowly. "I survived long before your house. Now I'm choosing to live. And what about your job? Your income? Your security?" Mrs. Whitmore spat. Marlene smiled, a small, quiet smile that held more truth than any scream. "I have a future now. One you never allowed me to have." Anthony crossed his arms. "You're done here, Victoria. If you step foot on this property again, I'll pursue legal action." Mrs. Whitmore stood there trembling, her world crashing in on itself. Then she turned on her heel and stormed out, the slam of the front door echoing through the house like the end of a rain. Marlene exhaled a long, trembling release of years she had carried alone. Anthony looked at her with something gentle in his eyes. You handled that with more grace than she ever deserved? Marlene wiped a tear from her cheek. I didn't realize how heavy it all was. Until it was gone? He smiled. Welcome to your new life. And as Marlene stood on the porch, watching the last traces of her past disappear down the road, she felt the weight lift completely. She wasn't the housekeeper anymore. She wasn't the woman who stayed quiet. She wasn't invisible. She was free. And this time she was walking into a future she chose for herself one step at a time, with her head held high.